It's the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on a Sunday night after a tough but expected Sunday. I gave the Jets a little chance in Buffalo. I thought they could cover the 10. They did. I did not think the Giants matched up at all. I've picked the Giants a lot as a dog this year. I did not think they matched up at all. And with the injuries they had coming into this game, although Barkley did play, I just thought they would have no chance against Philly, and they really didn't. They didn't match up at all, and really just showed them what they needed to see. And I think what Giant fans needed to see, and that is that the Giants are a long way away. The Jets showed you again today. And if Carter doesn't fumble that ball, that game's going to be interesting. They showed you they can compete defensively as long as they don't get any key injuries, any brutal ones. They can compete defensively with anybody in the league. They're not there offensively, but they have players offensively who can make plays. The Jets are a legitimate playoff contender. They'll have to play well the next 2 weeks to get there. We told you the other day, we said, hey, they can lose this game to Buffalo, but then they're going to have to turn around and they're going to have to win their next couple of games. All right? There's no question about it, and they're not going to be easy games. The Lions come in, and the Lions are thinking now about going to the playoffs. The Lions are much better at home, but they're still thinking of going to the playoffs. They're 6-7. After a 1-6 start, they're 6-7. No team has ever made the playoffs after a 1-6 start. They have an outside chance. They need to come here and beat the Jets. That's going to be a huge game, and it's going to be an interesting matchup coming up next week. And then the Jets, off that, will play Thursday night against the Jaguars. The Jaguars today beat up on Tennessee, and Lawrence, who you know I've been a big fan of and a big proponent of, has arrived. He has arrived as a legitimate NFL quarterback. The next stop is NFL star. It is there. It is coming. That team is coming. These next two games will not be easy by any stretch of the imagination. Are they going to be easy? There's no way around it. And then the Jets are going to have to go get a Seahawk team in Seattle that's desperate, and it's not easy to win in Seattle. Seattle's been beat up. They lost again. They lost today to Carolina. They are beat up now because they don't have their running game. When they don't have their running game, they don't have Walker. That's a big problem. They're beat up on the offensive line. Their defense is coming apart now. All they have left is Geno Smith, Metcalf, and Lockett, and that's not enough. But they're going to put up a fight in that game, and then a lot of it will depend on whether or not the Dolphins need the game or can move up or down on that last week in Miami. The Jets don't have any easy games. Not against the Lions, not against the Jaguars, not against Seattle, not against the Dolphins. They don't have any easy games to play. Okay? They don't. And they're going to have to win these next two games if they want to go to the postseason. It's been a good year no matter what. They can get to the postseason. I don't think there's any question they can get to the postseason. But they are going to have to win these next two games. And like I said, I think they'll beat the Lions next week, but they have to beat the Lions. They can't stumble. The last couple of weeks, they could stumble. They can't stumble next week. They have to win that game. But they have a very good chance. Now, there's more contenders in the AFC. There's just more teams there because New England's not out of it. The Chargers, who have a big game tonight with the Dolphins, are not out of it. Cincinnati and Baltimore are both going to the playoffs. Baltimore down to third-string quarterback now, but they have won 9 games. Tennessee is going to win their division, so they have been fortunate this year, despite the fact they've played terribly of late. They are in the right division because they are the only team that's going to be over 500 in that division. And even if they were a game under, they'd still win that division. So they're going to go to the playoffs. Nobody else is going out of that division. But you have Baltimore and Cleveland, the one that doesn't win the division is going to the playoffs. And you have Kansas City locking things up. So you have then the Chargers behind them, and you have everybody in the AFC East. The Jets have to win the next two, and it will probably take 3 out of 4 to get to the playoffs. It'll probably take 10. They might be able to sneak in with 9 on a tiebreaker, but it'll probably take 10. And that means winning 3 of these next 4 games. We don't know what's the Miami game's going to be on the line. They're 8-4 at the moment. We don't know if they'll be able to move up or down. They have locked up a playoff spot? We'll see, how everything shakes out in the weeks to come. But right now, for the Jets, they are thinking playoffs. They should be thinking playoffs. And they are in a good position. But the competition's not easy. These are not going to be easy games, starting with the Lions. But they have the ability to stay in every one of these games. White took a couple of nasty hits today. They made some plays in tough conditions. They played good defense in the game. They showed you some tenacity, holding them, getting the block punt. Okay, too bad it didn't stay in the end zone. It didn't. That would have made things very interesting. They got the ball back. They moved it. Carter fumble. Carter fumble was a terrible fumble. A terrible fumble. That's what I'm smiling afterwards. I'm like, what are you smiling about? It's a terrible fumble. You can't fumble there. I know nobody ever wants to fumble, but there's certain points where you just cannot give up the ball, and that was one of them. But they kept fighting, and they hung in the game, and they hang in against everybody. They've shown you that. The Giants were non-competitive. They got their rear ends kicked. All you needed to see in that game was the first time the Giants got the ball after the Eagles deferred. They went around one tackle. They went around the other tackle. They got 2 sacks. They punted the ball. The Eagles got the ball on the 16-yard line, drove it right down the field for a touchdown. Case closed. You could have gone home right there. It showed you how badly they were outclassed, and they're going to see the Eagles again. The only question is, do the Eagles have anything to play for in that game? Probably not. Probably not. They will have probably locked up everything with the Minnesota loss today. The hottest team, San Francisco, still has 4 losses, despite the fact they don't lose anymore, and now it's the world of Brock Purdy, which we'll get to. They might have to still hold off the Cowboys, depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks. So that'll be what it's about. Have they locked things up? Now, for the Giants, okay, Seattle losing today was big to Carolina. That was big. That was a big, big loss, okay, because it's Seattle. Detroit is on the outside now, making a move. So they are now in the mix. A lot will depend on what they do with this Jet game this week. They have to win it. If they're thinking playoffs, they have to win that game. That game is huge for playoff for both of those teams that are trying to prove something this year. That's an enormous game coming up this weekend. And 2 teams playing well. So that's going to be a fun game. The Giants at 7-5-1, okay, with 4 games left to play, are going to have to, without any question, they are going to have to win 2 out of 4 games to have any chance to get to the postseason. They're going to have to win 2 out of 4. If they can't do that, they don't deserve to go. Let's be honest, okay? The Giants have a tough schedule the rest of the way. They have not looked good now in weeks. They have been hit by injuries, and they don't have depth. They didn't have depth to play with the whole way. There's so many things to be worried about with the Giants here. So many things that you just have to realize that they can't overcome it. They just can't. They won early in the year because they were well coached. They stole games early in the year. And now they're getting outclassed. They don't have depth. Their injuries show, and frankly, they're playing competition that's better than them too many times. And right now, it's going to be hard for them to beat anybody that's any good. That's just the way it is. So I think reality has slapped Giant fans right in the face, and I think that's a good thing in the long run. You have the coaching staff in place. You have a plan now. You have leadership now. You got to make this roster better in a lot of spots, and you have to make a decision about the quarterback long term. And it's a tough decision. It's not one way or the other. You can make some good cases for Jones. You can make some bad cases for Jones. But the Giants are a long way away in terms of overall roster depth and talent, while the Jets are not. And the Giants have a lot of work to do. And frankly, it ain't going to be easy. Starting this week. Next week, prime time, Washington, a lot on the line. That team's outplayed them. They got a tie last week, but that team's better than them in recent weeks. They've played better. They're healthier. And it's a game the Giants have to have. Absolutely have to have. Without any question. If they have any plans the rest of the way, they have to have it. And we know what's awaiting them after that. We understand that. The only game that's even remotely a soft touch is the Colts when it happens. But you first got to go to Minnesota and deal with that team. And that's not an easy team to deal with, especially in their building, because you know they're going to be able to pass the ball. You know they got a great wide receiver. You know they're going to – I mean, today they lost, but they've passed for 400 yards in a loss. They had plenty of opportunities. And then you get the Colts, and then obviously a lot of it for the Giants will depend on whether or not the Eagles need that game the last week for anything. If they don't, they sit everybody, so be it. Maybe you get a cushion. You get a big break. That remains to be seen. A lot will be decided the next 2 weeks with the Eagles, especially with that big game coming up for them, obviously, on, Christmas Eve or Christmas Eve against the Cowboys. That's going to be a very, very big game. Don't let the Cowboys sloppy play today bother you. They have a habit of doing that against. They did it in the first half of the Colt game. They did it late today against the Texans. The bottom line is they win the games. They're sloppy in those games. They just are. Don't hold that against them. They still are a team that has to be reckoned with. There's no question about that. But there's no more, if you're thinking of the playoffs, there's no more small weeks. There's no more small outings. There's nothing but going out and finding a way to win. And right now for the Giants, it's a tall order. They haven't been good now for weeks and weeks as the world has caught up with them. And reality, cold reality has caught up with them in a big way. And today, they just got punched in the mouth. They got their rear ends kicked. We'll go around the league when we come back.
You're listening to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.
We're on the Bet Rivers Network as always, and for all your wagering needs, it's Bet Rivers in New York and New Jersey. Play Sugar House in Connecticut. So whatever you need, just go to their app and you'll find everything you need for all your needs there. And the program, of course, always on the Bet Rivers Network and wherever you can find your podcast. All right, Sunday night, after a tough one for the Jets, a tougher one for the Giants, Bengals continue to win. They are a legitimate threat in the AFC. They are a threat. Everyone will talk Kansas City, which will probably win out from here. Everyone will talk Buffalo, and rightly so. But no one should discount Cincinnati. Buffalo won't. Kansas City won't. They are a very dangerous team. Browns have taken a step back since they put Watson in. They want to get him ready for next year, so they're willing to do that. It's really destroyed Chubb's year. It happens. Cowboys win today. They get the late touchdown. They play a sloppy, ugly game against the Texans, but they're 10-3. That's what it matters. They're 10-3. The Vikings lose to the Lions, despite the fact that they throw for 425 yards and Jefferson gets 223 yards of real estate. But the Lions were good. Goff is good in his building. 27-39, 3 touchdowns. And the Lions continue to turn things around. Their game with the Jets next week is a terrific December football game. It's going to be fun. It really is. 2 teams headed in the right direction with a lot to play for here as the Lions have made it up to 10-6. Beware of the Jaguars, who are now 5-8 after they whipped on Tennessee today, 36-22. Lawrence, 30 of 42, 3 touchdowns, ran for a 4th. He is becoming a star in front of your eyes. He's supposed to be. He was the first pick. He was the golden boy. Everything was expected. Well, you know what? He's delivering it. Last year was a nightmare for anybody. He had nothing but a disaster. He never said a word. He took his beatings. He took the losses. He took everything. He didn't say a word. This year, he's had his up and down moments. He's had a lot of drops. He's had a lot of fumbles around him. Now he's playing sensationally. He looks the part. He's looking left and throwing right. He's playing the game the right way. He's starting to look like the star quarterback he's meant to be, and he is going to be a big star in this league, and the Jaguars are going to be heard from. And they have a tight end you may have heard from, who today all he had was 11 receptions for 162 yards and 2 touchdowns. His name, Ingram. Yes, Ingram. 11 for 162 and 2 touchdowns. That's better than his whole Giant career. I know it hurts, but hey, it happens in the NFL. The Ravens down to a 3rd quarterback after Huntley went out with the concussion. They got Dobbins back. Dobbins gave them a lift. Broke 100, got a touchdown. They have a tight end in Andrews who's as good as anybody this side of Kelsey. They can't get him the ball anymore. Why? Because they have no quarterback right now. Huntley gets hurt. He gets knocked around. They put Brown in at quarterback. I mean, they held on for dear life. Thank God for the Ravens. Trubisky was quarterbacking after Pickett got knocked cold. 3 intercepts, a couple of them buttes. Okay? He stinks. I hate to say it, but he stinks. I mean, and Pickett's only not playing because he got a concussion. A lot of concussions today. A lot of guys got banged up in the league. Quarterbacks dropping all over the league. Chiefs opened up a 27-0 lead after they got a pick 6 against Russell Wilson. Okay? 27-0. Held on 34-28, and it might have been crazy if Wilson didn't get knocked cold in the game, and he got knocked cold. I would doubt he would play next week. I would really doubt it. Broncos are awful, but the Chiefs, they weren't pretty today, but they won it 34-28. I don't know what Mahomes was doing today. I really don't. After he threw some touchdown passes, he decided I'll throw the ball all over the lot. After 3 TDs, he throws 3 interceptions. That helped Denver. Big breakout game for Jerry Jeudy. 8 receptions, 3 touchdowns. That's what they got Jeudy for. They need an overhaul. They're stuck with Wilson. They got to go get a coach. Hackett's going to be a 1 and out. He should be. Buccaneers and the Niners. The Niners are the hottest team in the league. They are I've been telling you now for at least a month, maybe longer. They are a Super Bowl threat. And I'm not ready to tell you that Brock Purdy can take them there, but I can tell you this. With their lines and their skilled people, they are as equipped as any team in the league to win the whole thing. They are loaded everywhere. On defense, on offense, playmakers abound everywhere. If Brock Purdy, who just seems like the most unflappable, he just seems like a good kid who's been thrust into a spot. A 7th-round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, shows up today and becomes the first guy to ever beat Tom Brady in his first start. I mean, how great was the story with his parents who didn't buy any tickets to any games this year because they knew he wasn't going to play, but they bought tickets to the Tampa Bay game because they wanted to see Tom Brady. What do they see instead? Their son, a 7th-round pick who was running the scout team, basically destroyed Tom Brady today 35-7, and he called off the dogs in the second half. He could have put up 50. All he did today was go 16-21 for 185 and some beautiful TD throws to McCaffrey and to Ayuk. I mean, he did everything right. They love him. He's a story. Niners are a story. They are flying high. They are an extremely dangerous team. And if you're Philly or you're Dallas or you're thinking about going to the Super Bowl out of the NFC, just remember this. You are going through San Francisco. Otherwise, you're not going. They're going to be in the way. No matter who is at quarterback, Purdy, Garoppolo, and he can come back in the playoffs. So watch out. That team is absolutely just flying high right now. They have won 6 games in a row. They are right now as good as anybody this side of Kansas City, and I still think Kansas City's the best team. No knock to Philly, and I think Hurts is the MVP now, but I still think Kansas City's the best squad day in and day out. But we'll see in the playoffs how that works out. Panthers won today in Seattle. Seattle all banged up. Had no running game. When they don't have a running game, they're not comfortable even with Geno Smith. Pete Carroll's just not comfortable. Walker, that was a big loss when he's out. They couldn't run the ball today. They got out-physicaled by Carolina. Carolina today ran the ball for 223. Seattle ran it for 46 yards. That's the difference in the game right there. Seattle turns it over a couple times, gets their quarterback sacked on some big occasions, and they can't stop the Carolina running game, and Carolina wins it 30-24. So Carolina is still thinking they go to the playoffs. They're not going to the playoffs. The interim's trying to get the job. I doubt he will, but they're playing more together. They're playing more cohesively. And they're just playing better, and they got a road win. And it was a bad loss for Seattle at 7-6. If you're the Giants, you're keeping one eye on Washington that's right in front of you, who you play next week in prime time, and your other eye on Seattle. But right now, you also need the Jets to deal the Lions a loss, because if the Lions get to 7-7, watch out. Because the games in that division are not going to be that big, because Minnesota's going to win the division going away. And the other teams, who knows what they do. So the last couple of games after the Jets might not be that bad for them. They get the Panthers. They get the Bears. And then they get the Packers. And let's be honest, the Lions can beat the Panthers, Bears, and Packers if they can beat the Jets. The Jet game could propel them to a big run and to the postseason. It's an enormous, enormous game this coming Sunday. It is an enormous game and has an incredible playoff implications for the 7-6 Jets and the 6-7 Lions. It is a big game with two teams playing much better, teams that have been out of it forever, who are now in December playing meaningful football for young coaches who want their teams to believe and who have wanted to take them to this spot. Well, here they are in December, in mid-December, pre-Christmas, battling in a game that has enormous playoff implications. That's what it's all about. And at least in this NFL season for New York fans, in week number 15, as you approach Christmas, The Jets will be playing at 1 o'clock with enormous playoff implications, and the Giants will be playing at 8 o'clock with enormous playoff implications. And that is something we haven't said around here in a very, very long time. The one difference, the Giants realize they are hanging on right now by their fingertips, and this thing is about to unravel. The Jets, they know they have the goods right now, led by a defense that can play on any field against any team in this league. They could have very easily made that very scary for Buffalo today. They didn't throw that game in at 20-7. They keep battling. Last week it was in Minnesota, and they beat themselves. This week they had a chance. Yes, they continue to make some critical mistakes. Those will come, those will go. But they have young players who make plays on both sides of the ball. And they have defensive talent that's terrific. Jury's still out for me with White. I need to see more. But when he came back in that game today after taking a couple of nasty hits and threw a couple of beautiful passes, it was a step in the right direction. That was a step in the right direction. I liked that he keeps fighting. I like that he came back in this game after taking a couple of really nasty shots today. He did take some nasty shots. He was sore after that game. I don't think there's any question. He was real sore. He'll be real sore tomorrow. But that team is fighting. And they have a big game. Really big game. I mean, I can't remember the last time I'd be that into a Jet game as I will be for the Jets and the Lions this week. That's a big game next week. I can't wait for it. And Jets Jacksonville on a Thursday night. And Giants in prime time against Washington with so much on the line. And that's what it's about. And as we come down the stretch of this season now, it's still Kansas City and Buffalo in the AFC. Throw Cincinnati in there. They're scary. Because their quarterback doesn't blink. And in the NFC, we have to give the Eagles an enormous amount of credit, man. They just do it. They just steamroll everybody. And we haven't given them enough of credit this year by a long shot. They deserve every bit of it. But San Francisco's coming by leaps and bounds despite the loss of Garoppolo. And Tom Brady's lucky that New Orleans was so stupid on Monday night, because right now he should be just about out of it. They should have been 2 under on Monday night. They should be 3 under now. They're lucky they're not, because they're not real good. And San Francisco could have beat them 50-0 today. And some of it was on Brady. At times he looked old. You're going to look old when your line breaks down and you're down 28-0. You're going to look old. So we're heading for some fun days, including next week. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network.